the signal that shouldn't exist. The night on outpost Z9 was silent. The stars above were cold and far away, and the only sound inside the station was the quiet hum of machines. Kaleri sat alone in the radar room. She was a young alien girl, with soft purple skin, glowing green eyes, and long silver hair tied behind her. She was one of the best signal operators in her unit, smart, quiet, and always alert. Her job was simple: watch the screens and report anything unusual. For many months, nothing had ever happened, but tonight, everything changed. Suddenly, the radar beeped. Kaleri looked at the screen. A small dot appeared on the edge of the galaxy chart. A ship? Out here? She zoomed in. The dot blinked again. Then she noticed something strange. The ship was broadcasting, on an ancient frequency, a code so old that most Zanari officers had forgotten it existed. Her fingers shook slightly as she typed in the translation key. It took a few seconds to load. Then the message popped up on her screen. UNSC Scout Vessel, Priority Survey Route, Human Federation Channel. Her heart stopped. Human Federation? No, it couldn't be. She stared at the words again. Humans were only myths, ghost stories. The Zanari Empire had defeated them 300 years ago. That's what everyone said. Humans are extinct, her commander had told her once. If you ever see one, you are already dead. But the message was real. The ship was real, and it was coming closer. Kaleri's hands moved over the controls quickly. She tried to scan the ship's structure. It was small, fast, and very old. The design didn't match anything used by the Zainari or other known races. It looked like something from a museum. Then the screen flashed again. Human vessel approaching, distance 40,000 kilometers and closing. Kaleri stood up from her seat. This must be a trick, she whispered to herself. She tapped her communicator. Command, this is Operator Kaleri in Sector 9. I have detected an unknown ship, ancient signal. Appears to be human origin. Static. Then a voice answered. Say that again, Operator. Kaleri swallowed. I said, human signal. It's heading this way. Silence. Then, remain where you are. Do not engage. We are sending a squad. Kaleri's hands were cold. She sat down again, eyes fixed on the screen. The dot was getting closer. Her mind raced. If this really was a human ship, what did it mean? Why now? Were the stories true? In the old tales, humans were monsters, brutal, clever, and impossible to beat. They didn't fear death. They didn't run. And they always came back stronger. The Zanari had won the last war by luck, not power. And now, one of them was coming back? 30 minutes passed. The ship was now close to the station, too close. Kaleri's heart pounded as the outer cameras picked up a visual. A small gray ship covered in scratches and burn marks floated near the docking bay. Its engines were silent. No weapons were active. It looked dead. But then, a docking signal was sent. They wanted to come in. Kaleri quickly checked the code. It matched the ancient human protocols. Another message flashed. Single human aboard, no weapons, requesting permission to land, no threat. She didn't know what to do. This was not an invasion. This was something else. Her commander entered, the room with 3 soldiers. They looked nervous. One of them had sweat dripping down his forehead. Are you sure it's a human signal? The commander asked. Kaleri nodded slowly. Yes, sir. 99.8% match, and it's speaking our language. The commander frowned. Then we let it dock. Lock it down. No mistakes. The soldiers moved out. Kaleri followed them on the screen. The docking bay door opened. Smoke hissed as the air changed. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then a figure stepped through. A tall being. 2 legs, 2 arms. No tail, no armor. Just an old suit and a calm face. He was human. Kaleri stared at the screen. The man looked straight at the security cameras. His eyes were soft but sharp, like someone who had seen too much. He raised his hands. "I am not here to fight," he said, in perfect Zinari. "My name is Marcus. I come in peace." The soldiers hesitated, Kaleri whispered. "It's really him, a human." The stories were real, but the story was just beginning. He walked out of the smoke. The docking bay was filled with thick smoke and silence. Kaleri stood behind the reinforced glass window above, eyes wide and heart beating fast. The soldiers below held their blasters high, ready to fire at any movement. The strange ship had landed without resistance. No shields, no weapons, no defense. Yet, everyone was scared. The stories about humans were terrifying. No one had seen one in centuries, but every child knew the warning. If a human arrives, prepare for war. But this didn't look like war. The ship's door opened with a loud hiss. Smoke poured out, old gray steam from an aging machine. Then, a figure stepped out. At first it was just a shadow, tall, upright, calm. Kaleri leaned closer to the glass. Her breath fogged up the window. The shadow became clear. He was human. His suit was torn at the shoulder, patched with rough metal plates. His face was bare, no mask, no helmet, skin pale from years in space. His hair was dark, cut short. A strange metal tag hung from his neck, but his eyes were calm, not like a warrior, not like a ghost. He looked curious, like he didn't fear anything. The soldiers shouted, "Drop to your knees, hands behind your head." But he didn't kneel. He raised his hands slowly and spoke, in perfect Zinari. "I surrender. My name is Marcus. I'm not your enemy." Gasps echoed in the control room. Kaleri's commander narrowed his eyes. "He knows our language?" Kaleri whispered. "Flawlessly. Impossible," the commander said. "Their kind can't still know our words." But the man below stood still, showing no fear, speaking every word with calm purpose. The soldiers didn't fire. Their fingers trembled near the trigger, but no shots came. Kaleri couldn't take her eyes off him. There was no hatred in him, no madness, just silence and understanding. Later, Marcus was taken to the interrogation cell. 4 guards escorted him through the steel halls. People watched from the windows, whispering behind their hands. Some were afraid, some angry. Kaleri sat in the observation room looking through the one-way mirror. Marcus sat on the other side of the glass, chained to the chair, still calm, still quiet. He didn't fight. He didn't resist. She looked at the file in front of her. It had just one word stamped in red ink: Myth. The higher command still refused to believe he was real. "Why did you come here?" the lead interrogator asked. Marcus smiled gently. "Because we were curious." "Curious? About what?" He looked up. "About how your people changed, and if any of you still remembered the truth." Kaleri leaned forward, shocked. The interrogator slammed a fist on the table. "Don't play games, there are no more humans, you were wiped out." Marcus tilted his head. "So you were told." After hours of questioning, he said nothing dangerous. No threats, no lies. Just questions in return. "Why are you so afraid of someone who came alone?" he asked once, and no one had an answer. Later, that night, Kaleri returned to the mirror alone. Marcus looked up at the glass. Though he couldn't see her, he somehow knew. He smiled again. A small, peaceful smile. Then he said aloud, "You've been watching me longer than the others. You don't believe the stories, do you?" Kaleri froze. How did he know? She took a deep breath and stepped into the room. The guards jumped, but she raised her hand. "It's okay. I just want to speak to him." Marcus watched her quietly. She walked to the table, sat down across from him, and said one word. "Why now?" His eyes lit up. "We've waited long enough," he said softly. "We gave the galaxy peace. We watched from the shadows. But then, We saw how far the lies had gone. Kaleri asked, "You mean we were lied to?" He leaned in. "You were told we were monsters, but monsters don't come alone, unarmed, and ask for peace." She looked into his eyes and saw no hatred, only sadness. Sadness. And hope. Kaleri didn't sleep that night. She stared at the stars through her window, remembering the old tales. Now she knew. The real story was just beginning, and she was part of it. They wanted to study him. She wanted to understand him. The next morning, the science wing of Outpost Z9 came alive with noise and tension. Doors opened. Lights blinked. Cold tools were prepared. Marcus, the human, was no longer seen as a visitor. He was now a specimen. Kaleri stood outside the pool lab, watching silently as 4 scientists in thick armor circled him like predators. He was strapped to a metallic chair, arms bound, sensors wired to his chest and head. The scientist spoke loudly as if he were deaf. "We'll scan his brain first. His body structure must be different. Careful, even his blood might be dangerous." Kaleri's heart tightened. This didn't feel like science. It felt like fear in disguise. She had spoken to Marcus. She had seen his eyes. He was not a threat. But no one cared about that. To them, he was a walking mystery. And mysteries must be broken open. Inside the lab, Marcus sat still, calm again. He looked straight at the ceiling while cold machines poked him. A laser passed over his ribs. A needle took blood from his arm. A metal scanner read his heartbeat. He didn't fight. He didn't beg. But he didn't speak either. One of the scientists hissed, "Not so special now, are you?" Marcus finally spoke, voice soft. "You fear what you don't understand. That's always been the beginning of war." The scientist rolled his eyes. "You're lucky we haven't dissected you." Marcus smiled a little. Not the first time someone said, "Let to my kind." Kaleri heard it all from behind the glass wall. She couldn't stay silent anymore. That night, while the lab was locked and the lights dimmed, Kaleri took a risk. She used her technician code to enter the observation room again. She stood in front of the glass. Marcus sat on the other side, alone in his chair, arms free now, but still watched by cameras. He looked up and smiled gently. "I was hoping you'd return." Kaleri stepped inside slowly. "No guards?" he asked with a smirk. "I disabled the door sensors," she replied softly. "Only for 5 minutes." Marcus nodded. "You're smarter than they know." Kaleri sat across from him. She had questions, but her mouth was dry. After a long pause, she finally asked, "Why didn't you fight back?" Marcus shrugged. "If I fought, they'd prove themselves right. I came to show something different." Kaleri whispered, "What are you really doing here?" He leaned forward. "I'm a scout, but not for war, for truth. We wanted to see if your kind could handle it." "Handle what?" He looked directly into her eyes. "That the stories were lies." Kaleri remembered the stories she was taught as a child. Humans destroyed planets for sport. Humans burned their own stars. Humans had no soul. But Marcus bled like them, spoke like them, showed kindness like them. He was no monster. "Why do you speak our language so well?" she asked. Marcus smiled. "Your people taught it to us, a long time ago. Some of us remembered." Kaleri shook her head. "That means you never forgot us." "No," he said softly. "We watched. We waited." She looked at him, puzzled. "For what?" Marcus leaned back and closed his eyes. "For the right one to listen." The next morning, the scientists wanted to begin physical endurance testing. Kaleri protested. "This is not a beast," she told her commander. "He has intelligence, he has peace." But the commander shut her down. "If he's human, he's dangerous. We must know his limits." They strapped Marcus to an endurance machine and raised the pressure. His heartbeat rose. Sweat formed on His face, still he didn't scream. Kaleri watched in horror. Then something inside her broke. She slammed the emergency stop. The lab went silent. "What are you doing?" shouted the lead scientist. "He's not your toy," she snapped. "He's history," the scientist growled. "No," she said, stepping between them. "He's alive, and he's trying to talk. Maybe for the first time in centuries someone should listen." That night, she visited Marcus again. This time, not in secret. He was resting in the same chair, bandages wrapped around his arm. He opened one eye as she entered. "Did I pass the test?" "You shouldn't have had to take it," she whispered. He chuckled. "Still, thank you." Kaleri sat down. Her voice was low, but firm. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Marcus's eyes sparkled. "All right. Let me tell you how the last humans vanished, and why we never really left." And so the real story began, not in a book or archive, but between one alien girl and one human man. The human Truth Kaleri sat across from Marcus in the dimly lit room. The lights above flickered now and then. This part of the station rarely got repairs. It was quiet. No guards, no machines, no tests. Just them. She had brought 2 cups of steam root tea, something warm from the canteen. Marcus held his carefully, like it was a treasure. "You still drink tea?" she asked, surprised. Marcus smiled. "Tea is the one thing humans never forgot, even during war." Kaleri watched the steam rise from his cup. "Tell me what happened," she whispered. "Not the stories, the truth." Marcus looked down at the tea. Then he began. "A long time ago, humans and Zainari were allies," he said. "We built gates through stars together. We shared knowledge, even love." Kaleri blinked. "That's not in any of our history records." Marcus nodded. "Because someone erased it?" He leaned forward. "The Zainari Empire didn't defeat us, they betrayed us." Kaleri felt cold all over. "You see," Marcus said, "humans started exploring faster than anyone else. We adapted. We moved through systems in months that took others years. Your leaders grew afraid." She didn't speak, just listened. Fear turned to anger. And in a single night, without warning, the Zainari fleet attacked our colonies. Our cities burned. Billions gone. "Why didn't you fight back?" she asked. "We did, but not for long. We realized something. War with you would destroy everything. So the last human council made a painful choice." He took a slow breath. "We vanished." Kaleri was stunned. "You mean, you hid?" "Yes," he said. "We scattered. Hid in dead systems, dark space, frozen planets. We waited. We watched. And we taught our children. Never return, unless there's hope." She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "So why now?" Marcus's eyes locked with hers. "Because for the first time in centuries, a Zainari didn't point a weapon at me. They offered tea." Kaleri's hands shook slightly. Her whole life she believed humans were monsters from the dark. Now one sat in front of her, kind, calm, hurt, and honest. She whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus placed his cup down. "Because you asked." That evening, Kaleri walked through the corridors of the station like a ghost. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Every soldier, every hallway, every screen was now painted with doubt. She stopped at a statue in the main hall, a tall Zainari warrior crushing a human skull beneath his boot. It was part of their victory history. She stared at it for a long time, and then for the first time in her life, she felt ashamed. Next morning, Kaleri walked into the command room. She asked to speak with the commander. "You again?" He said, annoyed. "Is this about the human?" "Yes, sir." "I thought I told you. He's under control." "No, sir. He's under fear." The commander narrowed his eyes. "Are you defending him now?" Kaleri stood tall. "I'm questioning our history." That word, question, echoed like an explosion. The room went silent. Later that night, Kaleri returned to the humans' room. She found Marcus sitting by the wall, looking out a small window at the stars. "You all right?" she asked. He smiled weakly. "They took away the tea." She chuckled, then sat beside him. "I told the commander what you said." His eyes widened. "That's dangerous." "I know." A pause. He looked at her. "Why are you risking this?" She thought for a moment, then said, "Because I don't think you came here to start a war. I think you came to stop one." Marcus nodded slowly. "You're right." Then he pulled something from his boot. A small, blinking device. Kaleri tensed. "What is that?" "A beacon," he said. "I haven't activated it yet. If I do, the others will come." "Humans?" she asked. "Yes. Thousands, maybe more." Kaleri's heart pounded. "Will they come in peace?" "That depends," Marcus said, his voice low, "on whether I tell them they'll be welcomed or shot." She looked at the device. It was small, ordinary, yet it held the power to change the galaxy. Marcus turned to her and said, "I came as a scout, but now I need a guide." Kaleri felt a strange fire inside her, fear, hope, purpose. The stories were wrong, and she was ready to write new ones, betrayal at the core. The next morning began with silence. Not peace, the heavy, dangerous kind of silence that comes before something breaks. Kaleri woke up with her heart pounding. She didn't know why. Then she checked her data tablet. One word blinked on the screen in red. "Security breach detected. Sector 4, human containment." Her breath caught. Marcus. She threw on her coat and ran through the station corridors. The halls were strangely empty. Lights flickered. Alarms weren't blaring, but there was a quiet tension in the air, as if the entire outpost was holding its breath. In the control center, Commander Vex stood with a tight jaw. 4 officers surrounded a glowing screen showing Marcus's cell. It was empty. Kaleri froze. "How?" she gasped. "He used your access code," the commander growled, turning to face her. "Don't lie, we tracked the override." Her blood ran cold. "What? No, I never—" But he cut her off. "You opened the door, whether you knew it or not." Kaleri's mind raced. The night before, they had spoken. She had touched. The panel, maybe without realizing the system had synced with her ID. "I didn't help him escape," she whispered. "But he escaped," the commander snapped. "And now the entire base is on alert." Kaleri tried to explain, but it didn't matter. The decision had already been made. "You are under arrest for conspiracy against the Empire." 2 guards grabbed her arms. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She just whispered one word. "Marcus." Marcus was moving through the underbelly of the station, not to flee but to find her. He had seen the message on her tablet when she visited. He had memorized her access pattern. He used it, yes, but only because he had to act fast. He knew they would blame her. That's not what he wanted. She had become more than a guard, more than a listener. She had become a connection to something humans thought lost forever, understanding. And now, they had turned on her. He moved silently through maintenance shafts, past dripping pipes and blinking wires. Twice he heard guards passing. He stayed hidden. His human training, old but sharp, kept him ahead of them. He reached the security wing. There, behind a force field, Kaleri sat on the cold floor, hands locked behind her back. She looked up and saw him. Her eyes widened. "You came back?" she said, barely above a whisper. "I told you," Marcus replied softly. "I didn't come here to run." He used a stolen keycard and hacked the door. Alarms began to flash red. Kaleri stood quickly. "You have to go, they'll shoot on sight." "I'm not leaving without you." She hesitated. "Even if it starts a war?" He paused. A war already started when the truth was buried. Then he reached out his hand. She took it, and they ran. Soldiers spotted them near the transport bay. Shouts echoed. Gunfire sparked off metal walls. Kaleri ducked behind a crate, pulling Marcus with her. That exit leads to the outer tunnels. They dashed through the emergency hatch, barely avoiding the blast doors as they slammed shut, behind them. Now in the cold steel guts of the station, they ran through dark tunnels filled with steam and old cables. "We won't make it far," she panted. "Where are we going?" "To the signal relay," Marcus said. "The beacon?" He nodded. "It's time." They reached the old tower where interstellar signals were sent. Long range, off the grid. It wasn't monitored often. Marcus placed the small beacon on the console. Kaleri looked at it again. That tiny device, blinking softly, held a choice that could change everything. "Once I activate it," Marcus said, "they'll come. My people. Not just scouts, ships, leaders." "Voices," Kaleri asked. "Will they fight?" "Only if attacked." She looked down, her voice trembling. "I don't want another war." "Then help me stop it," Marcus said. And she did. She placed her hand beside his on the beacon. Together, they pressed it. A pulse of blue light shot into the sky, through the tower's antenna, and out across the stars. Far beyond the edge of known space, something answered. Ships stirred, eyes opened. The humans were coming. Back in the command center, Commander Vex slammed his fist on the console. The human activated something. Find them. He didn't realize what he had done. He didn't realize he had just declared war. Or peace. Depending on what came next. And somewhere in the station's shadows, Kaleri whispered to Marcus, "Whatever happens, I'm with you now." He smiled. "Then maybe we have a chance." The arrival of legends. The stars above Outpost Z9 were still. Quiet. Cold. But deep beyond the edge of known space, something was moving, invisible to radar, silent as shadows, faster than any Zenari ship could track. Dozens of shapes, long, black and sharp like ancient blades, glided through the darkness. They had slept for centuries. Now they were awake. Back on the outpost, red lights blinked across every corridor. The commander was shouting, "All squadrons report. Prepare orbital defense systems. Ready every cannon." Panic had set in. He didn't know what was coming, but the fear in his voice told the truth. Something big was on its way. In the underground signal tower, Marcus and Kaleri stood side by side, watching the beacon's screen. It now pulsed steady and bright. "They heard us," Marcus said quietly. Kaleri's hands trembled. "How many?" He turned toward her. "Enough to be remembered." Minutes later, the sky above the station changed. Dozens of human ships dropped, out of warp, silently like ghosts appearing in the dark. No warnings, no dramatic engines, just in presence. Huge ships, sleek, black and glowing with soft blue lights, spread across the stars like a wall. The Zenari fleet scrambled into formation. Fighter wings flew out of the hangars. Cannons locked targets. But the human ships didn't fire. They didn't even raise shields. They simply waited. A message came through every channel at once. "This is the human peace vanguard. We come for one of our own. We come to talk, not conquer." Commander Vex's jaw tightened. "A trick," he growled. "Humans don't talk. They invade." But Kaleri appeared on the bridge screen. She had hacked into the main comm line. Her voice rang out steady and strong. "No, Commander, this is not an invasion. This is the truth we buried, returning home." Vex shouted, "You're a traitor." "I'm a witness," she replied. "You said humans were myths, but I've met one. I've spoken to him, and now they stand above us not with weapons, but with hope." On board the lead human ship, a figure stood tall, older than Marcus, dressed in dark gray armor polished like stone, silver hair, one cybernetic eye. Admiral Elon Royce, the last living general of the old Human Federation. He looked at the outpost through the screen and spoke. "We have come not for revenge, but for remembrance." Then he turned to Marcus, who now stood beside him, Kaleri by his side. "You were right," the Admiral said. "There are still some who can listen. Marcus nodded. And some who can change. Back on the station, arguments broke out among Zanari leaders. Some shouted for war, others, older ones, remembered the early days, before the purge, before the lies. One elder, Advisor Trell, stepped forward. "We cannot fight ghosts," he said, "and we cannot silence truth forever. Let the girl speak." A secure comm channel opened. Both fleets waited. Kaleri stood before the screen, heart racing, Marcus beside her. She took a deep breath and said, "To every Zanari listening, I believed the stories. I feared the myths. But I looked one in the eyes, and what I saw wasn't hatred. It was sorrow. The humans didn't vanish, we erased them, and now they return. Not with fire, but with memory. Let us meet them not as enemies, but as equals." There was silence. Then, the outpost commander lowered his head. "All defense systems, stand down." All across the stars, Zainari ships powered down their weapons. Human ships dimmed their eye. Lights in response, a sign of peace. It was happening, not war, not surrender, something new. A reunion between species once divided by lies, and it all began with one myth. One signal, and one girl who chose to listen. Later that evening, as the stars shone brighter than usual, Marcus and Kaleri sat on the roof of the old signal tower. Below, humans and Zainari officers walked side by side, exchanging greetings, comparing histories, sharing tea. Kaleri looked up. "So, what happens next?" Marcus smiled. "We rewrite everything." She believed the myth, then helped rewrite it. The outpost that once feared shadows now stood beneath a new kind of light. Human ships floated calmly above the planet's orbit. Zainari officers no longer aimed weapons. They stood at rest, heads tilted upward, watching in awe. It felt like standing inside a story that had once been told as a warning, but now it was being told again, differently. Kaleri stood on the central platform, dressed not in her old operator's uniform, but in a plain white tunic, the symbol of a neutral speaker. Before her stood leaders from both sides, Zanari, generals, human commanders, scientists, historians, and even a few children who had never heard the truth until now. Behind her stood Marcus. He no longer wore chains. Now he wore the simple badge of a human envoy. Not a soldier, not a spy, just a man who had come to be understood. Kaleri took a deep breath. Then, for the first time in Zanari recorded history, an alien girl spoke in defense of the human race. "I was raised on fear," she began, "taught that humans were wild beasts, clever monsters, destroyers of worlds. But then, one of them came to me, alone, unarmed, and he didn't destroy anything. He listened. He shared. And in that moment I realized something. A lie repeated enough times becomes history. But truth, spoken once with courage, can become legend." The crowd was silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Kaleri continued. "We erased their past. They could have returned with fire, but they returned with a message. Let us stop fearing ghosts. Let us stop living in shadows. Let us write a new chapter. Together." After she spoke, no one clapped. No one cheered. But many wiped silent tears. That silence meant more than applause. It meant hearts were changing. Days passed. Zanari and human engineers began walking the station together. Old Zanari war files were opened. Human archives were shared. Children from both sides were brought together for the first joint class, taught in 2 languages, learning one truth. Marcus and Kaleri became symbols, not of power, but of possibility. One morning, Kaleri stood, alone at the base of the victory statue, the one of the Zanari warrior crushing the human skull. She stared at it for a long time. Then a group of workers arrived. The statue wasn't destroyed. Instead, it was melted down, and from its metal they built something new. A sculpture of 2 figures standing side by side, a Zanari girl and a human man, each holding a single star in open palms. It wasn't just art, It was a promise. A few weeks later, Marcus prepared to return to the human fleet, but Kaleri walked beside him, a small satchel on her shoulder. "You're really leaving?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Only for now. We have to tell the others what happened here. That peace is possible." She looked up at him. "And when they ask you how it started?" Marcus reached out and gently tapped her forehead. "I'll tell them it started with a girl who questioned everything, and listened anyway." She blushed, slightly. "I only asked one question." He chuckled. "And that was enough to shake a galaxy." As Marcus boarded the ship, Kaleri looked up at the stars once more. Once, they had been full of monsters and myths. Now, they were full of invitations, new paths, new stories, new truths, and she would be there to help write them, not as a radar operator, but as a bridge.